Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode what it really takes for a business to not just survive a crisis, but to come out the other side even stronger. And our guide for this is the International Blueprint for Resilience, ISO 22316.
You know, this is really the question for pretty much any organization today, right? In a world that just feels like it's in constant disruption, what is the secret sauce? What's the difference between a business that seems to thrive on change and one that just, well, crumbles under the pressure?
Well, here's the thing. The answer isn't luck. It's not random chance. It's design. And the good news is there's a blueprint for it, an international standard that's all about building organizations that can bend but never ever break.
So what are we even talking about when we say organizational resilience?
At its core, the ISO standard says it's all about the ability to adapt. It's not about being rigid, like a stone wall trying to resist change. It's about being more like a tree in the wind, flexible, responsive, and strong because of it. But here is probably the most crucial point to get. Resilience isn't some finish line you cross. It's not a destination you arrive at and say, okay, we're done. It's a continuous cycle, a strategic commitment to constantly anticipate, respond, and adapt to, well, whatever the world decides to throw your way. So if that's what resilience is, the really big question becomes, how do you build it? Let's dive into the actual framework from ISO 22316 to see the core components. Okay, so here it is. This is the big picture, and you can see the standard is just brilliantly structured. It's got this core set of principles right at the center, and those are then supported by tangible attributes and practical activities that really bring those principles to life. It all starts with these 6 principles right there at the very heart of the model. I want you to think of these as the philosophical bedrock. These are the core beliefs that everything else is going to be built on. These 6 principles, they guide everything. It's about having a North Star, that shared purpose that everyone in the organization believes in. It's about having the situational awareness to actually understand your environment and then having the adaptive capacity to react to it. And crucially, it's about having the right leadership and coordination to make sure everybody is pulling in the same direction. So, if those are the core beliefs, how do they actually show up in the real world? Well, that brings us to the next layer of the framework, the tangible attributes that turn those principles into practice. And this visual just illustrates that next layer perfectly. These attributes are the practical, observable characteristics your organization has to develop to turn all those principles we just talked about into a reality. So, first up, it's not enough to just have a vision statement hanging on a wall. Everyone in the organization, from the top floor to the shop floor, has to understand and consistently apply that core vision and those values in all of their decisions, whether they're big or small. And this one's huge. Resilience needs leaders at all levels, not just in the C-suite, who can adapt their style and who are empowered to make critical decisions, especially when a disruption hits and there's just no time to wait around for approval. Oh man, this is so important. This means you're fostering an environment of openness and trust where people feel safe enough to communicate about potential threats and opportunities before they escalate into full-blown crises. A truly resilient organization is always looking ahead. It's constantly scanning the horizon for what's coming next, emerging threats, new opportunities, and it's ready to adapt its strategy and operations not just to survive, but to actually find an advantage in whatever comes next. Now, what's really interesting here is how this all connects. See, resilience isn't some silo department's job. It's not one person's responsibility. It requires coordinating all your different management functions, from finance to HR to IT, so they all work together in harmony. And look, this isn't just theory. We're talking about really tangible areas. You've got risk management, identifying threats. You have business continuity planning, how to keep the lights on. HR is making sure you have the right people with the right skills. And of course, cybersecurity and supply chain management are protecting your critical assets and dependencies. They all have to be on the same page. So let's say you're embedding the principles and you're building out the attributes. But how do you know if you're actually getting stronger? The final piece of this framework is evaluation, turning resilience from a vague idea into something you can actively measure, and more importantly, improve. And this is the engine that drives resilience. It's not a one-and-done fix. It's a constant loop. You set your goals, you take an honest look at your gaps, you monitor your progress, and then you use that data to continuously get stronger and more adaptive, over and over again. So, after looking at this entire framework, from the principles to the actions to the improvements, what's the one question you should really be asking yourself? Ultimately, this entire framework, this whole idea, boils down to one fundamental question for your organization. Is it built to adapt, or is it by default designed to break? Because resilience doesn't happen by accident. It's a choice. It's a strategic commitment to designing an organization that doesn't just survive change, but is actually built to thrive on it.